everybody, it's Mr. Roll here in the waiting room over at the Vinci Tree's main building, and it is week number 7, day number 2, and it is my turn to announce the honor roll and high honor roll for the 7th and 8th grade for trimester 2. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Let me grab my laptop here. Wow. Okay, so for a couple of you kids, you might not realize that you're getting honor roll because Mr. Barbero was kind enough to average all of the English grades together between the grammar, spelling, and literature to count honor roll. So, might be a few surprises in here. So for honor roll, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 people who made it on honor roll. In 7th grade, we have Noah. And in 7th grade, we also have Riley. And then in 8th grade, we have Amber. And we have Christopher. So the 4 people are Noah, Riley, Amber, and Christopher. Let me give you a round of applause. Great job, you 4. You guys worked really hard. It paid off. So you all 4 made honor roll. Now for the high honor roll, which is straight A's across the board, we had 1 7th grader and 1 8th grader. So our 7th grader who made high honor roll, which is all A's, straight A's, is Hazel. Great work, Hazel. And then for the 8th grader who made all A's, that person is Aiden. Great work, Aiden. So let's give a round of applause to the 2. Excellent job. Okay, and so for our student of the trimester for 7th and 8th grade, this student has been opening up out of her shell and has been an active participant in all of our classes, and we just really enjoy her company, and she does great work and is kind to everyone. And the student for the trimester for trimester number 2 was Tegan. Great work, Tegan. You have been doing very well, and we really appreciate you, and yeah, keep it up. Keep up the great work. So Tegan, you made trimester 2 student of the trimester. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and move on to our pledge and joke. For the joke of the day, this is, I guess, this was a little kid's joke that actually a kid told me, and I thought it was kind of cute. So, how did they say it? How come dinosaurs don't talk? Because they're all dead. Okay, that's a really bad joke, but anyway, that's it for the joke of the day. Please take off your hats or your hoods, stand and place your right hand over your heart with me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our announcements and our pledge and joke for the day. Have a wonderful week number 7, day number 2 of online school. We'll see you around. All right, are we going? I think we're going. All right, so again, congratulations to all of you who got honor roll or high honor roll, and to Tegan, our student of the trimester for 2nd trimester. You guys did great. If you didn't get it this last trimester, don't give up. We're still going to be giving out student of the trimester and honor roll stuff for this 3rd online trimester, even though it's not like a normal trimester. So you all, I didn't comment on this yesterday, but I love this hat. I got these hats for my kids a while back, and they're still wearing them, which is awesome. So yeah, I'm going to wear my Mario hat again today because I think it's cute. And also I'm self-conscious. I thought the worst part of shaving my head would be the weird shape of my head, but now that it's like growing back, I feel like a monk who left the monastery, and my hair is slowly growing back, and so it feels weird. Anyway, so let me put on my hat, and let's get to today's lesson. Oh wait, before we get to today's lesson, Vienna is the only one who's emailed me about your 8th grade graduation. So 8th graders, email me about your graduation. Do you not care about a graduation? Would you like to do an in-person graduation in late July? I'm sorry, but we are not allowed by state law, because the governor's orders for all schools to be shut down through the end of June. We can't do it in June. And at the beginning of July, we have some stuff going on at the school because we're doing some remodeling, so we can't really do it then because we're a little bit a little taken up at that time, but we can do it in late June. So please, 8th graders, email me. Let me know if you want to do an in-person graduation ceremony in late July or not, or if you'd rather do something online or whatnot. Because again, I've only heard from one of you, and there's at least, what, like 12 to 14 of you who could be potentially involved. So make sure you send me that, please. All right, let's go ahead and get to our agenda for the day. So first off in life skills, we are talking about GPA today. Again, we are in our education unit, and something that was never explained to me in all of my years in high school was GPA. Nobody sat down and said, okay, Matt, here's how a GPA works, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what I want to do for you. So we're just kind of talking over the basics of what does GPA mean, what is it, what is the difference between a weighted and an unweighted GPA? What's the actual threshold for the different numbers? Why is it important? All that good stuff. So that's coming up right after this introduction. In order to give you guys an easier time to finish all of these online classes, because some of you are slacking or you have slacked and you're trying to catch up right now, and it's real tough because you got a lot to do, I'm going to be giving one break to each class every day. Yesterday's break was science to let you do the Bernoulli ball. Today's break is economics. In history, you're reading an article about the Battle of Wounded Knee, which is, again, a very somber topic, so we're not going to talk too much about it again today because I feel like we're all at a stay-at-home thing for COVID-19. We don't need other things bringing us down, too much. But you'll read the article, and that should be enough. In literature, we're reviewing. I feel like I need to pause. The lives of people are always important, okay? The Battle of Wounded Knee was very important, but given our current circumstances, I just don't feel that long lectures over these things are always called for. So I should say that, because a lot of people lost their lives, and it was an atrocity, and it was real bad, so we shouldn't make fun of it or anything like that. So I apologize for being insensitive. Anyway, next, in literature, we are reviewing chapter 17, one of my favorite chapters in all of everything I've ever read, because when I was a kid and I read this, it really captured my imagination. I thought it was a crazy idea, because it's this idea of seeing your own funeral. Ooh, and it's not creepy or anything, it's just like socially interesting. Anyway, so we're going to be going over that today. In science, we're reading out of the book. We're reading from 378 to 380, talking about machines and introducing mechanical advantage. And then finally, for math groups 1 and 2, we're not really doing a lesson. We're just going over the basics, and then you're off to do Khan Academy. So it should be a pretty easy math day for this stuff. Then you just have to watch the Khan Academy videos. And if you're in group 2, do a quick quiz. Okay, that's it for today. Let's jump over into life skills. All right, I think we're recording. This is life skills for week number 7, day number 2. So we have discussed in general terms that it is very important for you to graduate high school and then move on and get some additional skills, whether that be like different certifications or job training, or for many of you, a 2, 4, or more year program in college. So we will be discussing the different college options. We'll be talking about different trade schools. We'll be talking about different job opportunities and all of that good stuff. But first, it's important to get through high school and do well. If you want to go to college, it's important to do very well in high school. If you just want to go on and do some kind of trade school or something like that, you have to do decently well. Plus, we don't go to school because of the social aspects only. School is important for the social aspects. It's important to grow up and, have certain milestones in your life, like your first boyfriend or girlfriend. It's important to have, good friends that you can see on a daily basis. And it's important to learn to say no to drugs and all that good stuff, the good skills that you learn. But we also go to school because school teaches us basic skills for life. So in high school, it's important to do well in high school, just for basic life skills. You know, in high school, oh, I got a little thing jumping there. Anyway, in high school, they teach you, you know, how to write well, proper use of our language, English. They teach you how to speak Spanish. And so when you meet someone who only speaks Spanish, you can hopefully get by with them. They teach you basic math. And so it's important to do well in high school because the stuff in high school is important. And it's also important to do well in high school for what comes after high school. And so with that in mind, today we are discussing some new vocabulary, and we are talking about your GPA. A GPA. So let's go ahead to the other screen and let's start talking about this here. So we have some life skills vocabulary today. And the first life skills vocabulary piece is this acronym GPA. So GPA stands for grade point average. An average of all of your grades in all of your classes. GPA. In high school, you have a GPA for the semester, for the year, and for your entire high school career. So that's an important distinction. So when we talk GPA in elementary school and in middle school, your GPA is only for one grading session, like one quarter, if you go to most schools, or one trimester at the Vinci tree, or we can look at your GPA for the entire year. And that's it. Now, in high school, it's different, because in high school, you have your entire high school GPA, where every class, starting in your first year, all the way up through your fourth year, gets averaged together, and that is your high school GPA, or your cumulative GPA. And so that GPA is what people look at to determine whether or not they're going to let you in their program after high school. So you might be wondering, well, what is this for again, Mr. Roll? I know it's important, but how is it used? So when people are running different job programs or different college programs or different school programs, so let's use JTED as an example. My niece went through the JTED program a few years ago after she graduated high school, it's a good program. She got her cosmetology degree, and it was excellent. I have a number of students, including my nephew, who is in the Navy right now, and he took the exam out of high school and got into the Navy, and the Navy looked at his GPA. So a GPA is a quick number that summarizes all of your school experience in high school. And if you think about it, if you are like a Navy recruiter, or if you are a JTED person who does admittance for different career programs, like for cosmetology, like my niece, or if you're a college entrance board and you're looking to see if you should let students into your college or your university or not, the GPA is a quick and easy number that people can look at and get a feeling for what kind of student you are and what kind of student you will be. And that's why the GPA is so important. It's one number that summarizes how good of a student you are. And so again, it's a really important number to understand, and it's a really important number for you to pay special attention to when you're in high school. So let's talk about the GPA. So there's two different kinds of GPAs. There's an unweighted GPA and a weighted GPA. Now, if you are in the advanced math program at Da Vinci, we talk a little bit about this, and I give you a little taste of it, but we don't really go into that much depth. So first, let's talk about unweighted GPA. So an unweighted GPA is your GPA with no regard for how difficult your classes are. All classes are rated on a scale of 0.0 to 4.0. I should flip that around. 4.0 to 0.0. All right? So with an unweighted GPA, it doesn't matter if you're taking college level physics in high school. The class is still rated on a scale of 0 to 4, or 4.0, 4.0 being the highest. So an unweighted GPA has no consideration for how difficult your classes are. Now the weighted GPA is the opposite. So a weighted GPA is your GPA with consideration for how difficult your classes are. A class that is AP, and AP stands for Advanced Placement, CP for College Prep, or IB for inner, I don't know how to spell this one. It's like inner baccalaureate. I don't know. Anyway, or IB, it's called inner baccalaureate, okay? Or something to that, in that ballpark, okay? Your class will be judged on a scale that goes up to 5.0 or sometimes 6.0. I don't like how that kind of drops down there. Let me rearrange this, guys and gals. There we go. Okay. So with your weighted GPA, if you take some really hard classes, like you take an IB class, a college prep class, an AP class, those classes actually are on a scale of 5 or 6.0 rather than 4.0. So for instance, let's say, let's use Mariah, for example. So if I'm Mariah and I'm going to high school next year, and I know Mariah's going somewhere up north, like closer to Marana, and so if she goes to high school, and let's say that she takes an AP English class, and she gets a B. So now normally a B is a 3.0 in a normal English class, but because she is taking an advanced placement class, that B is weighted from a 3.0 all the way to a 4.0. So that B in an AP English class is actually weighted as if it were an A in a normal class. Everything kind of gets bumped up a grade, all right? And again, for the really, really hard classes, sometimes they're even bumped up 2 grades. Now, I can't tell you too much about that because I'm old. And when I was your age, there was no 6.0 weighted scale. It only went up to 5.0 and not even always. And so they've gotten a little bit more lenient over the years. And it actually makes more sense now because some of these classes are really crazy difficult. All right, so let's go to the GPA scale because everybody who's listening to this is somewhat familiar with the normal grading scale of like from an A to an F, right? And so the A to F grading scale translates into GPA numbers like this. Let me pull it up here. Where are you? There we go. Okay, so if you're looking here, an A plus to an A minus right here, we're looking at anything from a 3.7 to a 4.0. So a 4.0 is considered to be a perfect GPA. 4.0 is perfect. That's as good as you can get if it's unweighted. If it's a weighted GPA, you can actually get above 4.0. And so like the top kids in my high school had this crazy high GPA of like 4.5 or something like that. And that's almost impossible, but that's okay. They tried really hard and most of them went to schools like Harvard and Stanford and stuff like that, and they deserved it. That's cool. But again, for most of us, an unweighted perfect GPA is a 4.0. And as you can see right here, that means you're either averaging A's or A pluses in everything. And so here we have an A minus, which is 3.7, and then anything at a 3.6 or under is a B or under. See that? And so a B goes from all the way from 2.7 for a B minus to 3.3. A C goes from 1.7 to 2.3. And anything under a 1.7 is considered a D or an F. Now, I want to point out here, all right, that 1.0 is still passing. So there was an old joke that you probably have heard, and it goes, C's and D's get degrees. Now, C's and D's don't really get degrees, they get diplomas. So C's and D's can get you a high school diploma, but when you actually go to college, if you're going to a decent university, they actually won't give you a degree if you're getting all C's and D's. They'll kick you out, or they'll have you do some kind of remediation, but you do not get degrees at most reputable universities for C's and D's. However, in high school, a D average of 1.0 or higher will allow you to pass and get your high school diploma. I do not recommend this. So, so that's just kind of a little bit of insight into the scale. So, ironically, when you're looking at a D, okay, whoops, how come it's not letting me go? I don't know. Anyway, when you're looking at a D, we're normally thinking around 60%. And so 60%, for those of you who are keeping track, is more than half of the points. But on the grading scale here, more than half doesn't really cut it, because 1.0 starts at like 65%. And so if you even want to do the bare minimum, you have to be getting a 65% or higher in most high schools. And so that is how the GPA breaks down. Okay, so I hope that today's discussion about grade point averages made sense. I hope that you take a look at these numbers. Again, different high schools might do it a little differently. Some high schools put a D at 60% rather than 65%. And so it depends on where you're going, and so you have to ask what the scale is. But again, this whole idea of a 0 to a 4.0 is the same everywhere. The idea of having weighted and unweighted classes, that's the same everywhere. Anyway, that's it for today's life skills. Again, I hope you took something away from it. Hey everybody, so like I mentioned in the opening, to make it a little bit easier for everybody, we're taking a break on one subject every day, and today that subject is economics and current events. So, no economics and current events for today. Alright, let's jump into history, which will also be real brief because it's just basically you need to read an article. Alright, so today in history, you're reading about the Battle of Wounded Knee. We talked quite a bit about the Indian Wars yesterday, and I don't want to belabor the point. It was a really sad time in our history. It's not something any of us are proud of by any stretch. And so, without further ado, I'm just going to let you read the article. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into literature. Please make sure you read the article about the Battle of Wounded Knee, which effectively ended the Indian Wars and was kind of the last great military stand against the United States colonization of Indian lands. Is it going? I think it's going. All right, so today we are reviewing Chapter 17, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And I have a confession to make. After I read this book when I was a kid, I was in middle school or maybe even in 5th grade or something like that, I legitimately had many dreams growing up about this chapter because it just really caught my imagination. And so, basically, the three boys, they have a rough night. I think there was a storm and whatnot. And anyway, they're homesick and they're going back home. And Tom comes up with this crazy plan, and he mentioned it like a chapter or two ago, but they never described it. They wait until their own funeral starts, and they actually spy on their own funeral, and they listen to everything that the people have to say about them. And then at the end of the funeral, they come strolling in like nothing's, like it's no big deal. Like, hey, you know, we're alive, no big deal. You know, you can come and love us now. And everybody's like screaming and crying, and they're giving them all hugs and stuff. And then the part of this that's just really heartbreaking is like nobody cares about Huck, and nobody gives him a big hug. And so, I think it was Tom's aunt. She's like, oh, come here, you big guy. And she gives him a big hug too. And they're all like super embarrassed, and it's really cute. But I remember just this crazy idea of what would it be like if you could be at your own funeral and just be a fly on the wall and listen to everything that everybody had to say about you, and what would it be like if if you weren't around and you got to hear how people regretted how they treated you, and oh, I'm so sad, so sorry I was mean to him, and Becky is so sad that she was so rough on Tom, and blah blah blah, right? But yeah, so it's just a real fun kick, for all three of these boys to get to literally attend their own funeral from behind the scenes, and then crash the party. And so it's just a wild story. I'm almost tempted to read it to my own kids, but I think I'll wait until they get older so they don't try any of these tricks. Because I would be very upset. But yeah, so anyway, that was chapter 17, one of my favorite chapters out of any story of all time, just because it is a crazy idea. And maybe, who knows, maybe you'll dream about what it would be like if you could attend your own funeral like Tom Sawyer did. Whew. Anyway, for tonight, please make sure that you're reading chapter 18. Please make sure that you're doing your vocabulary words 5 times each and writing out the definitions. Again, vocabulary words count as your spelling grade. Definitions count as your reading grade or your literature grade. Mr. Barbera has been telling me that not very many of you are doing all of them, so make sure that you're getting those turned into him. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the credit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and it is time for us to move on to science. We're going to be doing some reading. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting a new section in science about mechanical efficiency and leverage and things like that. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start by just reading. So today and tomorrow we're just reading, and then on day 4, week 7, day 4, you have some questions to answer. So pay attention. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So let's take a look at this guide for reading first. So how do machines make work easier? We're going to find out. What is the difference between actual and ideal mechanical advantage? Well, you may not even know what mechanical advantage is yet, so you probably don't have thoughts on that if you don't. How can you calculate the efficiency of a machine? And that's also a really good question. How do we calculate which machine is more efficient with the energy or the force that we're using with that machine? So let's go ahead and get started. A truckload of mulch for your new garden has just arrived. The only problem is that the pile of mulch has been dumped 10 meters from where it belongs. And again, a meter is like, what, 40 inches? So it's a little more than 30 feet. What can you do? You could move the mulch by handfuls, but that would take a very long time. You could use a shovel and a wheelbarrow, which would make the job much easier. Or you could have a bulldozer move it. That would make the job easier still. So first up, what is a machine? Shovels and bulldozers are examples of machines. Again, a shovel is an example of a machine. All right, so hold on. Let's find out why. A machine is a device with which you can do, a machine is a device with which you can do work in a way that is easier or more effective. You may be used to thinking of machines as complex gadgets that run on electricity, but a machine can be as simple as a shovel or even a ramp. It's interesting because when you talk to archaeologists about technology, a lot of times when they talk about technology, they're not talking about complex things. They're talking about like stone tools, or they're talking about iron tools like shovels and plows and things like that. All right, let's keep reading. Perhaps you think that a machine decreases the amount of work that is done, but it doesn't. Moving the pile of mulch, for example, will involve the same amount of work no matter how you do it. Similarly, you have to do the same amount of work to lift a piano, whether you lift it by hand or push it up a ramp. And so again, here they are shoveling it with a wheelbarrow. Very nice. So, let's take a look here. What the shovel and the ramp do is change the way in which you do the work. A machine makes work easier by changing the amount of force you exert, the distance over which you exert your force, or the direction in which you exert your force. let's go ahead and this is like the key takeaway. A machine makes work easier by changing the amount of force you exert, the distance over which you exert your force, or the direction in which you exert your force. So we're either looking at changing the amount of force, the distance that we exert the force, or the direction that we exert the force. And so here we see the input force and distance goes into the machine, and the machine outputs the work, the output force, the distance, the output force, or the distance or the output force and the distance. And so notice that these are all different sizes up here, all right? And so you're like, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. Well, it's not. And so this is about 50-50 there, okay? We go over here, and these are all different. So different machines handle the output force and the distance in different ways. Again, you know, something like a wheelbarrow will give you a lot of distance because, and it will lower the output force. So if you're using a wheelbarrow, the output force is the force that you're using to move the wheelbarrow, and it takes the mulch, in this case, a long distance. Make sense? A pickaxe, okay, would keep the same distance, but would increase the output force. And so that's another form of a machine. All right, so you might say that a machine makes work easier by multiplying either force or distance, or by changing direction. When you work with a machine, you exert a force over some distance. For example, you exert a force on the handle when you use a shovel to lift mulch. The force you exert on the machine is called the input force, or sometimes the effort force. The machine then does work by exerting a force over some distance. The shovel, in this case, exerts a force to lift the mulch. The force exerted by the machine is called the output force. Sometimes the term resistance force is used instead because the machine must overcome some resistance. Multiplying force. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn off my email. Multiplying force. In some machines, the output force is greater than the input force. How can you exert a smaller force than is necessary for a job if the amount of work is the same? Remember the formula for work. Work equals force times distance. If the amount of work stays the same, a decrease in force must mean an increase in distance. So if a machine allows you to use less force to do some amount of work, you must apply the input force over a greater distance. Again, it's all going back to math, because science and math are super related. Super related. I'm so technical. Anyway, so if a machine allows you to use less force to do the same amount of work, you must apply the input force over a greater distance, because again, it's force times distance equals that work. Okay. In the end, you do as much work with the machine as you would without the machine, but the work is easier to do. Hooray, machines. What kind of device might allow you to exert a smaller force over a longer distance? Think about a ramp. Suppose you have to lift a piano onto the stage in your school auditorium. We don't have one. You could try to lift it vertically, just like, or you could push it up a ramp. If you use, zoom out, if you use the ramp, the distance over which you must exert your force is greater than if you lift the piano directly. This is because the length of the ramp is greater than the height of the stage. The advantage of the ramp, then, is that it allows you to exert a smaller force to push the piano than to lift it. So again, it takes less force to push the piano up the ramp than it does to actually pick the piano up and carry it up. But that smaller amount of force is exerted over a greater distance, and that's how the machine of a ramp works. It's the same amount of work, but that equation is changed up because the force is less and the distance is greater, but still giving you that same amount of work. Get it? Hopefully you do. This, again, I really wish we were doing this in person so you could ask me questions so I could look in your eyes and make sure that you're actually paying attention, because it's really easy for this to go over your head if you're not paying attention. Multiplying distance. In some machines, the output force is less than the input force. Again, in some machines, the output force, the force that is at the end, is actually less than the force that you're putting in. Why would you want to use a machine like this? The advantage of this kind of machine is that it allows you to exert your input force over a shorter distance than you would without the machine. For you to apply a force over a shorter distance, you need to apply a greater force. When do you use this kind of machine? Think about a shot with a hockey stick. You move your hand a short distance, but the other end of the stick moves a greater distance to hit the puck. The hockey puck moves much faster than your hands. What happens when you fold up a sheet of paper and wave it back and forth to fan yourself? You move your hand a short distance, but the other end of the paper moves a longer distance to cool you off on a warm day. And when you ride a bicycle in high gear, you apply a large force to the pedals over a short distance, and the bicycle, meanwhile, moves a much longer distance. So again, more force than the machine is putting out, but over a longer distance. So that's the trade-off. If your input force is more than your output force, then there's going to be some kind of difference in the distance. Changing directions. Some machines don't multiply either force or distance. What could be the advantage of these machines? Well, think about raising the sail in figure 7, right here, this fella. Okay? You could raise the sail by climbing the mast of the boat and pulling on the sail with a rope. But it is much easier to stand on the deck and pull down than to lift up. We have the same thing when we put the flag up on our 2 flagpoles at the Vinci tree. It's a lot more difficult to climb up the entire pole and tie the flag up on top than it is to tie the flag on the bottom and then hoist it up using the rope. Yeah? So, but it is much easier to stand on the deck and pull down than to lift up. By running a rope through the top of the mast, as shown, you can raise the sail by pulling down on the rope. Again, just like when you set up a flag on a flagpole, or a big flagpole, okay? This rope system is a machine that makes your job easier by changing the direction in which you exert your force. All right, so figure 7. 1, 2, 3, pull! Up goes the sail. This sailor pulls down on the rope in order to hoist the sail into position. Okay, so again, the concepts that we are looking at today is reviewing work. So work is force times distance, and talking about what a basic machine is. Again, a machine is not necessarily some fancy-pants piece of technology. It can be something as simple as a pulley and a lever. It can be something simple like a ramp. It can be something simple like your gardening tools. I know a couple of you are doing some gardening projects just like me. I planted a couple trees today. And so now we have like 8 trees in our yard, but they're still young, so you know, no shade yet, no fruits yet. But so all these things that we use on a daily basis, these are all machines. And so they all use this work equation and make our lives easier in various ways. Okay, that's it for science for today. Again, tomorrow we're going to be doing some more reading, and then on day 4, you're going to have some questions. Thanks. Is it on? All right, excellent. So my job today as your math teacher is super simple because I'm making Khan Academy do all the work. Oh boy. All right, so, wow, I think the color just changed. I wonder if you guys see that. Anyway, for group number 1, let me make sure I got this right. For group 1, what you all are doing today is you're going to watch 2 videos. These 2 videos are talking about all the different variations of rolling dice and all the different variations of flipping a coin. And so there's 2 videos. They're both pretty short. I think they're both like 3 or 4 minutes long at the most. So today you don't have that much math homework. Your only homework is to watch those 2 videos. Very simple. Group number 2, your homework is also pretty straightforward. It's the exact same thing you did yesterday, but yesterday you were multiplying bases and adding exponents. Today what you're doing is you're taking a power to a power. I forget how Khan Academy calls it. I think that's like an exponent to an exponent, or they call it like raising exponents or something like that. But it's basically like a to the 4th power to the power of 2, which is a to the 8th. That's it. And so you have one review video that's, I think, 9 minutes long, and then you have another practice session on it. Now, the one thing I want to caution Group 2 is in your practice session, when you're doing the practice session, you put in the variable or the number that's your base, and then there's a special button that you press to type in the variable. And on Khan Academy, the main base is like really big, and then when you type in that little special number for the exponent, the little cursor gets nice and small up there. And so you should be able to put that in, but you have to type in the base, and then you press the special button, and then you put in the exponent. Otherwise, it won't work if you just use a caret top or try to do it with a superscript or whatever. All right, so you have to do it the Khan Academy the way they've set it up to get the right answer. Okay, that's it. So folks, watch your videos, and for Group 2, do that little quiz and you're all set. Last but certainly not least, big old shout out again to those of you who got like honor roll and high honor roll. I know you're like all listening right now, hopefully, because you all are in my math class. Let me see if I can remember. I remember the high honor roll off the top of my head was Hazel and Aiden. Good job, you guys. Student of the trimester was Tegan. Great work, Tegan. Excellent job. You've been doing great. And then the honor roll, I remember we had Christopher. Wait, Christopher's probably not watching this video, but if you see him, tell him congratulations. We had Christopher, Riley, who's in Group 2 watching this, Noah, who's in Group 1 watching this, and then we had one other who was Amber, who is also in Group 2 watching this. So congratulations to all you guys who got honor roll, high honor roll, and our student of the trimester. And with that, I will end the video for today. I hope you had an okay day today, and I hope the rest of your day goes swell. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, see you all later. Have a good one.